Tableau. What I want to do today is to speak about the artistic image. And I will speak about the artistic image as an existentially insecure being. So from the perspective that the artistic image is a particular mode of being, and that this being experiences an existential insecurity about its own self and identity. Okay. So I will, I have only 2 slides, but I will start with the excerpt from the call for papers text. And on the right side there is a sketch depicting how I started to prepare to think about the excerpt and how I worked on the abstract first and then on the what I will say today. And what interested me in this excerpt, by which Mick Finch showed before, is the fact that the traditional pictorial form was linked with a specific mode of thinking, and not painting itself, but a strategy of presentation seems to have a quality to reactivate reason. And at first this might appear strange to have something that is linked to a sensible appearance to reactivate reason. I also thought a little bit about contradiction and different types of contradiction and different modes of thinking. And I was interested to engage with the Tableau form as a possibility to reactivate reason, but at the same time I was also, I felt that there is an indistinctness in relation to the what Chevrier calls a thinking based on fragments, openness and contradiction, because this is not something new. It has already a tradition that went along with logical discursive thinking. We have hermetic thinking, we have symbolic thinking, meditative thinking. All these types of thinking actually allow already contradiction and are to different degrees open to interpretation. So I thought that maybe what is at stake here is maybe the possibility to not to see reason the only source of meaning, and maybe the Tableau form, the force of the Tableau form is maybe actually the force of the artistic image. And when I speak about artistic image, I'm mainly thinking about visual images, but this doesn't mean that an artistic image is only a visual image. It can be also a poetic, a tactile, olfactory, so it's all these different types of images. And as I said, I will look at it as an existentially insecure being, and in order to do this, I will draw upon Jean-Luc Nancy's understanding of the artistic image. And if you would be to explain what he means by an artistic image through looking at you, he will say that the force of the artistic image is actually the force that would gather all these eyes into the sameness of one eye, but still display the distinctness and difference of, I don't know, maybe 300 eyes. And I think that the image in itself, but also in its relation to the world, it is a divided being. It is divided between presentation and representation, but also as a presentation of self-presentation, it is divided between the self as self and the self as other. And I will explain this later. So, I propose to look at the artistic image in analogy to a self that doesn't take its identity and its autonomy and realness for granted. I think this is important. This ontological insecurity is important. It is a creative force, and it has an impact on our decision when, as makers, as display of artistic images, but also on the position and how we look at artistic images. And because I will speak all the time about formation and form seems to be crucial today, I will, at some point I want to pause on form and to try to recover in our understanding of form the idea of a limit that doesn't limit. So, yes. Mention as well is the fact that I see these different methods of presentation actually as possible manifestation of what I'm calling this insecurity of the image. And also in relation to the except when we refer to an object image, I don't think that the image is an object. It can be presented in its physical form as an object, but the image is not an object in the sense that it cannot be fully grasped conceptually. We cannot melt it down in science and concepts. We cannot fully incorporate it. So even if its physical presence is an object, this object still entails an element that is conceptually inaccessible. I'm following Jean-Luc Nancy's understanding of the image as presentation, more precisely the presentation of presentation, the presentation of a formation, of figuration, the presentation that shows how something comes into form, how it comes into presence. And for him, the image is radically different from any idea of imitation or mimesis. The image is not a reflection. It is not like a mirror in which determined and determinable pre-existing entity reflects itself. The form, and I'm using form very widely here, also form understood as a visual form but also as a conceptual form. So the form that is presented in an image, it doesn't have a pre-existing reality. He also speaks about the line of the image, the trait, which is what draws this form in the image with figures. But this line is actually a line of separation. For him, the only way we can engage with artistic image is from distance, through discontinuity, through separation. And this line, this force, it is actually a force, presents something into an image, but at the same time the linguistic and conceptual meaning of this figuration withdraws itself. And the sense of the image for Nancy, it's something that cannot be mediated through the order of signification, through language. It remains indefinite and it remains in excess of itself. But Nancy says that sense is essentially disidentifies, it ascribes, and he says that the relation of the image with sense is actually the eternal return of the same. And that there is no singular mode of existence for sense. And why he says this? Because for him sense is actually used in all its semantic field. Sense can refer to sense, to a direction. We're using sense also when we speak about our five senses, but it can be also an intuition or reason. And sense for him basically something that takes place, and it takes place before the separation between the sensible and the intelligible, between the separation between subject and object. And the way sense is through our sharing of a simultaneous time space. So it has an ontological status. We are sense. We don't have sense, but we are sense.